ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते
वासुदेवाय।
वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम
ओम नमो
नमो
भगवते
भगवते वासुदेवाय।
वासुदेवाय।
नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं
नारायणं नमस्कृतं
नमस्कृत्यं
नरं चैव नरोत्तमं
नरं चैव
चैव
नरोत्तमं
नरोत्तमं
देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं
देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं
व्यासं
ततो जयमुदीरयेत्।
ततो
ततो
जयमुदीरयेत्।
जयमुदीरयेत्।
नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु
नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु
नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु
नित्यं भागवत सेवया
नित्यं
नित्यं
भागवत
भागवत
सेवया
सेवया
भगवती उत्तम श्लोके
भगवती
भगवती
उत्तमश्लोके
उत्तमश्लोके
भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी.
भक्तिर्भवति
भक्तिर्भवति
नैष्टिके।
नैष्ठिकी।
Reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 7, title Knowledge of the Absolute, and verse 14th. Daivi esa gunamayi
दैवी एषा गुणमयी
mama maya durataya
मम
मम
माया
माया
दुरत्यया
दुरत्यया
mameva ye prapadyante
माम् एव ये
मामेव
प्रपद्यन्ते
एते
mamyam etam taranti te.
मायां
मायाम्
एतां
एतां
तरन्ति
तरन्ति
ते।
ते।
Daivi esi gunamayi
दैवी
दैवी हि
एषा
एषा गुणमयी
गुणमयी
mama maya durantaya
मम
मम
माया
माया
दुरतया
दुरन्तया
मामेव ये प्रपद्यन्ते
माम् एव
मामेव
ये प्रपद्यन्ते
यन्ते
मायाम् एतां तरन्ति ते.
मायां
मायाम्
एतां
एतं तरन्ति
तरन्ति
ते।
ते।
यानी प्रभु जी
दैवी हि एषा गुणमयी
दैवी हि एष गुणमयी
मम माया दुरत्यया
मम माया दुरतया
माम एव ये प्रपद्यन्ते
माम् एव ये प्रपद्यन्ते
मायाम् एतां तरन्ति ते।
मायाम् एतां तरन्ति ते।
दैवी हि एषा गुणमयी
दैवी
दैवी
हि एष
एषा
गुणमयी
गुणमयी
मम मया दुरतया
मम
मम
माया
माया
दुरतया
दुरत्यया
मामेव ये प्रपद्यन्ते
माम् एव ये
मामेव ये
प्रपद्यन्ते
प्रपद्यन्ते
मायाम् एतां तरन्ति ते।
मायाम्
मायाम्
एतां
एतां तरन्ति ते।
तरन्ति।
दैवी हि एष गुणमयी
दैवी एषा गुणमयी
मम माया दुरतया
मम माया दुरत्यया
माम् एव ये प्रपद्यन्ते
माम एव ये प्रपद्यन्ते
मायाम् एतं तरन्ति ते।
मायाम् एतां तरन्ति ते।
word by word meaning. Daivi transcendental,
दैवी दैवी ट्रांसडेंटल
he
Transcendent.
certainly,
He
ही
certainly
certainly
esa this,
this
is this
This
gunamai consisting of three modes of material nature.
Guramai consisting of three modes of material
Gurmai
nature.
consisting of the three modes of material nature.
Mama,
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 my,
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 maya,
my
energy,
energy,
energy
durataya,
Duratyaya,
Duratyaya,
very difficult to overcome.
very
very
difficult to
difficult to
overcome.
overcome.
Mam,
Mom,
Mam,
unto me,
unto
unto
me,
me,
eva,
eva
eva,
certainly,
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 ye,
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 those who,
those who
those who
prapadyante,
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 surrender,
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 mayam,
maya,
etam,
etam,
this illusory energy,
this illusionary energy,
taranti,
taranti,
overcome,
overcome.
overcome,
te,
Te,
they. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This divine energy of mind consisting of the three modes of material nature is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So any Prabhuji would like to read the first paragraph of the purport
The
here?
Supreme Personality of Godhead has innumerable energies, and all these energies are divine. Although the living entities are part of his energies and are therefore divine, due to contact with material energy, their original superior power is covered. Being thus covered by material energy, one cannot possibly overcome its influence. As previously stated, both the material and spiritual natures, being emanations from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are eternal. The living entities belong to the internal superior nature of the Lord, but due to contamination, it is not going. But due to contamination, the inferior nature matter, their illusion is also eternal. The conditional soul, it is not coming, Prabhuji.
Is therefore called Nitya Baddha or eternally conditioned.
Okay.
Okay, no problem. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Anybody
Okay.
else would like to read this?
No one can trace out the history of his becoming conditioned at a certain date in material history. Consequently, his release from the clutches of material nature is very difficult. Even though that material nature is an inferior energy, because material energy is ultimately conducted by the supreme will, which the living entity cannot overcome. Inferior material nature is defined herein as divine nature due to its divine connection and movement by the divine will. Being conducted by divine will, material nature, although inferior, acts so wonderfully in the construction and destruction of the cosmic manifestation. The Vedas confirm this as follows: Mayam tu prakritum vidyan, Mayanim tu Maheswaram. Although Maya is false or temporary, the background of Maya is the supreme magician, the personality of Godhead who is Maheswara, the supreme controller. Shweta, Upanishad 4.10. Yeah.
Someone else can read this?
Of rope, it is to be understood that the conditioned soul is tightly tied by the ropes of illusion. A man bound by the hands and feet cannot free himself. He must be helped by a person who is unbound, because the bond cannot help the bond. The rescuer must be liberated. Therefore, only Lord Krishna or his bona fide representative, the spiritual master, can release the conditioned soul. Without such superior help, one cannot be freed from the bondage of material nature. Devotional service or Krishna consciousness can help one gain such release. Krishna, being the Lord of the illusion energy, can order this insurmountable energy to release the conditioned soul. He ordered this release out of his causeless mercy on the surrendered soul, and out of his paternal affection for the living entity, who is originally a beloved Son of the Lord. Therefore, surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord is the only mean to get free from the clutches of the triggered material nature.
Someone else can read this?
The words Mam Eva are also significant. Mam means unto Krishna Vishnu only and not Brahma or Shiva. Although Brahma and Shiva are greatly elevated and are almost on the level of Vishnu, it is not possible for such incarnations of Rajaguna, passion, and Tamaguna, ignorance, to release the conditioned soul from the clutches of Maya. In other words, both Brahma and Shiva are also under the influence of Maya. Only Vishnu is the master of Maya. Therefore, he alone can give release to the conditioned soul. The Vedas, Svetastra Upanishad 3.8, confirm this in the phrase Dhamma eva viditva, or freedom is the possible only by understanding Krishna. Even Lord Shiva affirms that the liberation can be achieved only by the mercy of Vishnu. Lord Shiva says, Mukti Pradata Sarveswaram Vishnu eva na samsayaha. There is no doubt that Vishnu is the deliverer of liberation for everyone.
Om Agyana Timirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya. You all can chant with me. Shaktamena Tasmai
Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah.
Sri Chaitanya
Manobishtam
Stapitam
Stapitam Ena Bhutale Swayam
Swayam
Rupa Kadamayam
Dadati
Iswa Padanti
Padantikam.
Vandeham Sri
Sri Guru
Sri Padakama
Yukam Sri
Sri Guru Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam
Rupam Sagrada
Sagana Raghunathan
Antam Sajivam
Sadvaitam
Adhutam Savadutam
Parijana
Vijan
Sahitam
Saitam Krishna
Chaitanya
Chaitanya Devam
Sri
Sri Radha
Radha
Krishna
Krishna Padan
Padan
Sagana
Sagan
Lalita
Lalita Sri
Vamsha
Vishakancha
He
He
Krishna
Krishna Karuna Sindhu
Dinabandhu
Dinabandhu Jagatpati
Gopesha
Gopesha Gopika Kanta
Gopakanta
Radha Kanta Namostute
Saptakanchan
Tapta Kanchan Gaurangi
Radhe
Radhe Vrindavaneshwari
Vrishabha
Rishabhanu Sute Devi
Pranamami
Pranamami Hari Priye
Vanchakalpa
Panchakalpatarubhyacha Prabha
Sindhuve
Sindhu Bevacha
Patitanam
Patitanam
Pavanebhyo
Pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo Namo
Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah
Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Chaitanya
Prabhu Nityananda
Nityananda
Shri
Sri
Advaita
Advaita Gadadha
Vasadi
Srivasadi Gaur
Bhaktavinda
Bhaktarinda
Hare
Hare
Krishna Hare
Krishna
Krishna
Hare Krishna
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 Krishna Hare
Krishna
Hare
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 Hare Rama
Hare Rama Hare
Hare
Rama
Rama,
Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Hare.
So thank you so much for joining this Saturday Bhakti Vriksha, where we discussed some of the selected Bhagavad Gita verses. And this verse is very, very powerful. And I offer my obeisances at the lotus feet of all the Vaishnavas who have joined together without really going into different uh, aspects of the material enjoyment which the world offers to us. We have decided to not go to the material enjoyable places, but stick to our Bhakti Vriksha schedule where we discuss about some of these top powerful verses of Bhagavad Gita, some of the top 108 verses, and we have been going systematically. We had little break, but we're just catching from where we left off. So here, Krishna is explaining, in a very emphatic way, uh, and he's saying um, he has many energies, and this divine energy of Krishna, consisting of three modes of material nature, is very difficult to overcome. Um, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross it beyond it. So wherever we go, when whatever we do, we realize that we have the propensity to enjoy without the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But here, Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is saying something else. He's saying, everything is controlled within me. All these energies you see here is, is within me, actually. So I kind of control this. But when people go out to enjoy separately without me, they realize that they have they have gone on a detour and they have to come back to the interstate where they have to stay within the regulated way, and it's very difficult to live uh, without the confines of the modes of material nature, and and eventually the only way is to surrender unto me, which is Krishna. So, as you know, when you are born, you are in your mother's womb for 9 months. And during those 9 months, there was so much of suffering. There was suffering because you were claustrophobic inside the mother's womb. Mother's womb had, a lot of acidic substances. So you are constantly, uh, under the, many different germs, microorganisms. You are in a very constricted state. And after this 9 months, when you come out, you get so much of happiness that you breathe the fresh air for the first time. And then you end up doing whatever you want to do. Then every time you want to enjoy beyond your regulated time, say your parents have given you time to enjoy between 4 to 5, where you go out and play with your friends. But sometimes when you overstay, your parents chastise you by saying, why did you stay more? You have to go get back into studies. And then you go to college, and college, you work, you try to get good grades. And sometimes when the grades don't come out as expected, you're chastised again by the people who care for you. And then when you get married and you start working, or you start working and then you get married, there are regulations in place. And every time you have an opportunity to align to the right frame of mind, always you have tried to go, we have all tried to go astray, but always there is a indication that we all should come back. We all should come back. That is because we have the propensity to, because that, see, this is the, as we discussed some time back, we have four challenges in this human life. We have imperfect senses. We are born to make mistakes. We have the cheating propensity, and we want to lord over the material nature. So, because we have these imperfections, these four imperfections, we always try to go astray and try to seek things which might make us feel good. But eventually, there are controls in place. Our parents are there, our well wishers are there. They always get us back. Exactly like that, Krishna is saying, I have these three modes of material nature: mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance. But these three modes are very difficult to overcome. So you have to constantly surrender. And here, um, Srila Prabhupada is giving the example of the conditioned soul is therefore always Nityavadya, or eternally conditioned, because we are so conditioned based on your upbringing, your behavior changes, the way you interact with people changes. That's the reason why sometimes there are some people who get to Krishna consciousness very fast, because the conditioning is very detached oriented, and they align with Krishna consciousness very fast. And there are other people who take a bit of a time, because they're very much conditioned. Their food habits are very conditioned. Their family lifestyle is very conditioned. So that's why Srila Prabhupada in the last line is saying the condition is always Nityavadha, or eternally conditioned. And then he goes on to explain from the Vedas that this material energy, this material nature is the inferior energy. And we spoke about parasakti and aparasakti in the prior classes. And that's the reason why, in order to release ourselves from the clutches of the inferior energy, is actually better for us. And that is where Maya tries to not let us go. So that's why from Svetaswara Torah Upanishad 4.10, as you can see, Maya is false or temporary. So you have, when you put a stick inside water, the stick looks bent, but when you take out the stick, it's straight. But inside the water, when you look at it, it's bent, because you have that illusory concept. And whenever you're going on a desert, it appears that the water is very much near because of the reflection and refraction of the sun rays. But uh, but there is no water. So it's essentially the illusion that we can enjoy without Krishna. We can go to a park and go to a picnic and enjoy without Krishna. But soon that falsehood, when you take out the stick, it becomes straight from bent. Likewise, we realize that there's no living without Krishna. because we are constantly under watch by Krishna. Krishna is constantly watching where we are going, what we are doing. And that is where it is very much recommended that we are under the ropes, as Srila Prabhupada mentioned, and some of you read it. This guna, this modes of material nature is like a rope. It's actually trying to bind us. And when you are bound by the rope, you cannot take it out because your hands and feet are bound. You need somebody to get you unbound from the clutches of the rope. And that is where you need help. You need some spiritual help, where, as Srila Prabhupada is saying, you need somebody who is a bona fide messenger of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has understood the scriptures so that he can come and untie you and get you towards the superior energy, not the inferior energy. We talked about parasakti, aparasakti before, and 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 once with the help, as Srila Prabhupada is saying, you can align, and you will always realize, because our memory is very, as we get older, our memory also fails. To tell you the truth, the way you are catching and remembering when you are probably 20, 25, you'll remember a lot of things which happened when it was 20, 25. But something which happened a year ago or 2 years ago, even if it has happened very closely to you in terms of time, you'd be forgetting. Because as you age, your your propensity to hold on to the memory, hold on to the events becomes very bad. And that is the reason why you need some association. You need a, a coach who can guide you to these regulated principle. And that's why Srila Prabhupada in 7.14 in this work, what is so emphatically saying, you need a bona fide representative of the spiritual master. You need a spiritual master. And that is not as if you need it today or tomorrow. A time would come when you would seek the spiritual master or the descendants of the spiritual master who is in your community or in association to guide you, so that you constantly maintain devotional service. So once, say for example, you are in the habit of playing some game, but then you don't play for some time. When you don't play for some time, you lose that habit. When you lose that habit, likewise, devotional service is a habit. Once you have inculcated it, in the morning you wake up, you try to do some chanting, you try to do some devotional service. Unless that is uh, internalized and you do that on a regular basis, it's very, very difficult for you to train your mind, because the mind is very erratic. It goes here and there. That's why, in order to have the constant devotional service mindset, you need the help of a bona fide representative. And here, there is references from Upanishad 3.8, Swatvara Upanishad, which Prabhupada is quoting, that even Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, they are under Maya as well. You know, we have a situation when Lord Shiva boons everybody that whoever you touch, he will become bhasma. He will basically disappear. And the Rakshasa or the demon wanted to try it first with Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva runs. He gives the boon, but he cannot protect himself. But Lord Shiva is is Mahadev, is a very, very superior person. But Lord Shiva is also controlled by the modes of material nature. And that is where it's mentioned that the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna can only give liberation to all the souls, that includes Brahma and Shiva. And that is where, let's try to understand all the energies, because if you see, Devi Asi Gunamai. So, whenever Lord Krishna is talking about Maya here, he's referring to his energies. So unless you know the energies, it will be very difficult to overcome the energies. So when you know that there is electric current here, then only you want to really stay away from it, because it can be dangerous. Likewise, so that's the electrical energy for that example. Similarly, Lord has two kind of energies. They are Yogamaya or the internal potency, or Mahamaya or the external potency. The internal potency or Yogamaya is the Swarup Shakti of the Lord. And that's why he has the existential function or the Sandhini Shakti, or the knowledge function, which is the Sambit Shakti, or the pleasure potency, which is the Ladini Shakti. So Sandhini is Sat, Sambit is Chit, and Ladini is Ananda. So the Satchit Anand, what we often refer to, is actually the Yoga Maya, the existential function, the knowledge function, and the pleasure function. Likewise, Mahamaya has two flows. One is Jiva Maya, like the knowledge of the Jivas, like the creation, maintenance, and annihilation. And then there is a Gunamai. And here, as you can see, Krishna is starting Deviyasi Gunamai. So Gunamai and Mama Maya Duratya. That means, so the Guna Maya is the Pradhan and Prakriti, or non-manifested or manifested. And likewise, the Jiva Maya is actually is Avaranatmika Maya. That means it tries to cover us. So it's like sometimes when you have a cloud, you can't see the sun, but that doesn't mean sun is there. It kind of covers. So because we are in United States, and there are so many ways to enjoy. There is parks, there is beach, there's so many things. The presence of all these things gives us the impression that there is a covering, and that covering gives us the propensity to go there instead of joining the Bhakti Vriksha or having the temple activities. So that is why the Maya tries to cover it. That doesn't mean the devotional service is not there. That doesn't mean the sun is not there, but it kind of puts a avaran, it puts a cover of the knowledge. And then there is Prakshipakmika Maya. That means it fills conditions souls with misconceptions. So generally nowadays there is a lot of quarrel which is happening in the family. But actually, if you look at a novel way, if the intentions of two people in a family are not bad or not negative to each other, but still, because of the third people, because of this different people who really want to create this age and try to mingle in this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, they try to fill the conditioned souls with misconceptions. So when they fill it with misconceptions, the good souls, they tend to fight with each other. And that in the Mahamaya angle is called Prakshipakmika Maya. That means it basically gives us the wrong conception. And when there is a wrong conception, people start disbelieving each other. That's why there is so much of war happening nowadays, because people do not believe uh, each other. People envy each other, and there is a lot of so essentially the Maya, as you can see, these are the energies of the Lord, and this Maya is not bad. It's how you react or respond to it that defines the Lord's energy. So that's why Lord is saying, I have these. You have to live within the confines of it. But the best way to live and deal with this is to go through the process of surrender, which is exactly what Krishna consciousness is all about. So we spoke a little bit last week or the week before last about aparasakti, or the inferior energy, and parasakti, which is the superior energy. Everything has a date of birth and changes with time, because any material thing which is there in this world, it starts sometime and it changes. Our skin changes, our visual strength changes, everything changes. And and, and this Jagat also, it started sometime, and when it started sometime, it was created by the energetic, through the energy. So there is a supreme personality of Godhead who created this, and the material elements move with living entity. Jiva Bhuta Mahabaho. That means material elements move with So when if a person um, doesn't know how car works, like a child, for example, so he's probably 3 years old. He has never seen a car, and he sees a metallic thing like a car which is moving. You have the understanding because you know that the car is being driven by a driver, but the child doesn't know. That's the illusion. That's the illusion because the material thing, the clutches, the gears, and everything is operated by a living thing, and child doesn't understand that. And that's the kind of illusion uh, which uh, we all are subjected to, and that's why Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 7.15 says, these people who are foolish, the lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, who partake to atheistic nature or demons, they never surrender to me. So as you can see, there are two things which has been spoken here. In 7.14, Krishna is explaining that you cannot live without my modes or gunas. So you have to surrender. And then in the next verse, which we'll take probably later, or if this is one of the top 100 words, but just to touch upon that, there are foolish people who do not surrender. They do not understand that they have gone through this birth under the mom's womb with a lot of trouble, with so much of lifestyle changes, with so much of job restrictions, with so much of, when you were a kid, you were restricted. Everywhere there is restriction. So you have lived with this restriction, but still you want to stay within that. You really do not want to unshackle yourself to really surrender. So that's the reason why Krishna is saying, even if these people have undergone these material behavior where they have been constantly chastised, they would not like to unshackle themselves and come out and try to surrender to me. And that is where Krishna is saying, these people are foolish because they won't understand, they won't refine themselves. And that is where this 7.14 and 15 goes hand in one, where in 7.14, this verse, where Krishna is saying, this whole world is under my gunas, and you need to control. And the people who do not surrender are essentially people who are the lowest in that context. So, and this prakriti, which is the nature, uh, is influenced. The spirit soul is influenced by the influence, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are actually carried out by three modes of material nature. So whenever we try, we have get a lot of power, we think we are doing it. Whenever a husband gets money in his house, he thinks he is taking care of the family. Actually, he is not. A time will come when his ability to work goes away. At the time, he cannot do anything. So, but that concept has not really sunk in with a husband. Likewise, with a wife is doing a lot of work in the house. She thinks I am making food in the house. So, because of this egoistic, false egos, there is a lot of fight which is happening. So that's why the spirit soul constantly thinks that they are doing it. Actually, they are not doing it. They are under the modes of the material nature, and it's very difficult to overcome actually. And that is when Krishna says, Maya Dikshina Prakriti, Swayate cha Characharam, Hetu Nanena Kanteya Jagat Viparivartate. That means all these energies is working under his direction, under the Supreme. So Krishna's direction, all this Prakriti, all this nature, all these gunas are actually, and he has said it many times in Bhagavad Gita in different ways. But the people who are producing the moving and non-moving things, that they are doing it, but actually not a single leaf in a plant or a tree can move without the consent of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I just like to just conclude by saying that whatever we do, however we try, we realize that the the influence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in our day-to-day life in the modes in which we deal with our lives is not going to change. Constantly, the, the modes of nature is going to be controlled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However we try, we cannot overcome it. It's not possible. This is not a monarchy, or this is something where somebody is forcing you. This is typical natural thing. So Krishna has said it many times. However we try to really unshackle ourselves, because in our heart Krishna is there as a soul and a super soul. So however we try, we will realize that we are missing something in life. Like initially, a chewing gum will be very tasty. As you are chewing the gum again and again and again, it's so difficult. It becomes very. It doesn't become very any. It doesn't become any sweet anymore as you constantly chewing the gum again and again and again. And that's the reason why once you get into the modes of material nature, in the external way, in the material energy, you'll realize that you are not excited about so many things which is happening. And then you realize there is somebody else who is controlling our life, and it's better we surrender. And this is not just, you and me. We're saying thousands of exalted people have realized that. And that's the reason why Bhagavad Gita is actually a FAQ, where he is explaining that the best way to understand me is to surrender unto me without, and he is saying it with a lot of reasoning, as you can see. And with that only, we can understand him. Uh, to understand him is very simple. If we are complicated, it's very difficult for us to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's the reason why a very simple set of people come to Krishna consciousness and they have a very blissful life. So with that, I'd like to end here. If there are any questions or comments, this was more of a verse which has a lot of very fundamental points which we can elaborate with certain pastimes later with other things. But this is more of a theoretical verse where it is being told that however we try, we cannot get ourselves out from the shackles or the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it is only relevant to surrender unto Him, because with surrender, we would have such a loving exchange that we will enjoy our life rather than we'll enjoy going to the temple more and more rather than going to enjoy in beach or in park. As we move closer or we have some scriptural knowledge, as we go through this process of Bhakti Vriksha and we discuss among the devotees, then we will have the kind of questions which will allow us to grow in our spiritual life. And hopefully someday we will realize that we should surrender onto the Supreme Personality of God. With that, I'd like to end here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any
Yeah.
questions or comments?
Prabhuji, we want to surrender to Krishna, but it is said that because of our past karma, we are not able to do that, even though we wish to do that.
Yes, Prabhuji. So, Prabhu, what happens is old habits die hard. So, even if we have lived a different life in the past life, but some of the anarthas, as we have read and discussed, is carried forward. You'll realize that some people who are very pious, their activities, as they become more pious, their activities become better and better. And the people who are into material things, they're into um, drinking or alcoholism or lack of control. Their prarabdha karma, because as it is not regulated, it gets into the habit. And as they do more and more devotional service, it gets neutralized day by day. So, say for example, if a person, like say for example, I'll give you example. When there was a fisherman, okay, he always lives in his house, and in his house there is smell of fish all the time. So he gets a very nice sleep in the house where there is smell of fish. One day, his friend, he went to his friend's place, and that friend happens to be a flower seller, and that flower seller has rose in his house, and there is so much of perfume of rose coming in that house, and that is the mode of goodness in this example. But this fisherman, he couldn't get sleep in the house of his friend, which is filled with flowers. That is because of the conditioning, because of the conditioning, because he's subjected to that rotten smell, and that rotten smell is part and parcel of it. And that is exactly the reason why, Prabhuji, to answer your question, because of our prarabdha karma, because of those residual things, we have not taken good care of our soul in cleansing. That's the reason why we cannot surrender. We cannot surrender. It always prevents us. It always prevents us. As we become more, get more association, we get more scriptural reference, we chant, we eat Krishna Prasadam, our food habits change, everything changes. Then we gradually become a fisherman like to a uh, to a to a flower seller like, where we tend to accept uh, gradually the mode of goodness, and as we clean the conditioning, we get to a point where we don't like sleeping near the set of fishes with bad taste, bad smell, but rather get into a mode of goodness when we build that taste, and we kind of get rid of the conditioning day by day, neutralize. And that's the reason why this life, this Krishna consciousness is a science and it's a practice. And once we practice, we'll get over it. The mode of surrender, Prabhuji, you are asking, we'll get over it. But it won't really come because we have so much of conditioning. We have ahankar, we have ego, we have envy, we have certain liking for certain things because of our past life. Some people like to drink or whatever. So based on that, it kind of goes away in time. It doesn't goes away overnight. But this is a practice. And Srila Prabhupada has given the regulative principles and asked us to go into a higher taste. Then we start liking what is right. Is that okay, Prabhu?
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare
Very,
Krishna.
very good.
Any other comments or question? It need not be a question. We'd like to hear how this verse has affected you, or you'd like to comment anything on the verse. I would like to hear from you, Prabhuji and Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Wonderful verse, and wonderfully you explained. Uh, so one question I have, I'm not understanding one thing. So basically, Maya will make separate from Krishna, right? So because due to Maya, actually, we kind of we are kind of it's a kind of covering, right? So if Maya will make separate from Krishna, why actually Krishna wants us to come back, right? Then why actually Krishna have that Maya thing?
Yeah, very nice question. So, Krishna has two kinds of Maya, as you're seeing on the screen, the Yoga Maya and Mahamaya. So there is a good energy of Krishna, and there is a energy which is needed for this material nature. See, Krishna wants to be loved. Krishna wants to wants Krishna wants you to take the first step, but Krishna will take 10 steps to get you because he is very, very merciful. And because we all are independent souls, even two sons born as twins, they are not the same. So everybody has the propensity because they're individual souls. If we are the same, if you eat, my stomach will get filled. If I eat, your stomach will get filled. But that's not a, we all have a independent position in front of Krishna. That's the reason why Krishna has given us that soul because of which we are living and leading a life. And Krishna wants to be loved not by force, but by your sheer desire of action. So Krishna wants us to take a step, and and the realization that, like, whenever a kid is trying to walk, and the parents don't always take the kid on the shoulder. They want the kid to walk. They fall down and then they learn, and then they start walking. Likewise, Krishna, as the Supreme Father, Aham Bija Pradapita, as the Supreme Father who has given the Bija in all of us, he wants us to try exactly like you try when you let your kid run the cycle. When I was, teaching my daughter the art of learning cycle, there was test wheels, right? The support wheels, and once upon a time, she fell down. She had bruises on the knees, but after one or two times, as I took the training wheel out, she was able to balance and learn cycling. So Krishna is, as is the Supreme Father, as the Lord of the universe, or as Lord of uh, our lives, he's trying all of us to take the first step. And if the first step is in the right direction, uh, none of these mayas are bad. Okay, none of these mayas are bad. It is how we respond to it is bad. All this maya has come from Krishna. It can be bad. It's just that we do not respond properly. Radioactivity is bad because it can resort to bombs. But nowadays, the electricity, as the coal is turning into a lot of emissions, giving a lot of emissions, the nuclear energy is turning into electric energy. So that's not bad anymore. So it's how people respond and react to this is the question. So the Krishna wants us to try first, and once we take a step, Krishna will recover us. Does that help, Prabhu?
Yeah, Prabhuji, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Any other comments or question?
Yeah, Prabhuji, for me, actually, I was wasting a lot of time, actually, in watching TV and watching movies, right? But after, like, I can see, like, within 6 months, whenever I'm trying to, watch any news or something like that. So there is something within myself which tells, like, what you are doing, you are wasting your time. Okay, don't do that. Okay. So something which tells me in my heart, like, don't waste your time. Okay. So immediately I switch off that. Okay, so I should not waste watching all those nonsense things. So actually, yeah, so I can see, like, for me, at least myself, actually, I can see a lot of improvements after, I hear this Bhagavad Gita, daily, and so it really improves, after listening all those things, actually.
Right. So thank you for sharing your heart, Prabhu. See, what is happening in the current news? They are no more news. They are basically news analysis. So whenever they get a news analysis, what they're doing is they are getting two people from different sides, and they're letting them, so-called fight. See, during the fight, what happens? It so in a material sense, whenever there is, what is this Kali Yuga, the age of quarrel and hypocrisy? Anytime there is quarrel, there are people who want to taste it better. They enjoy, they relish the quarreling, they relish the fight. They, so that's how they have kind of taken the news into a different mode. Getting the news, basic news is not bad. But when we watch TV, this is exactly what even I had the realization. Thank you for sharing. Because they are constantly arguing against each other. And if you see that, if you hear that, what is going to translate in your lives? We are going to become more quarreling. We are going to get more agitated, and we will get ammunition to fight, and that doesn't help us in our family life, in our job life, or any life. Maybe it will help us in trying to put the perspective, but putting the perspective in the right direction can only be acquired when we go and get it from a good scripture like Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita or Chaitanya Charitamrita, where the Supreme Personality of Godhead is really coming up with these nice solutions about Prakriti or surrender or the yoga ladder. And he is having different slokas to back it up with so beauty that you really do not want the TVs. Getting a little bit news is not problem, but the way the news is shaping now, it's becoming very, very quarrel oriented, and that is where we have to shun that for the benefit of um, the spiritual life. Thank you for sharing, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Any other question or comment? Mataji, you have any thoughts or comments? Okay. Okay, so we have Snan Yatra on the Thursday from 7 to 9 p.m. So come before 7 p.m., 6:45, 6:30. Bathe the Lord in your own hands, the Lord of the universe, Lord Jagannath. That is actually his appearance day. It's Snan Purnima or Snan Yatra. And there is going to be the Hathi Vesh or Gajanan Vesh. On the day of Snan Yatra, devotees bathe him with so much of love that Lord, with reciprocation, falls ill and he doesn't give darshan for the next 2 weeks. So after 24th, Lord will not be giving darshan for 2 more weeks. So it's a wonderful opportunity to involve yourself in all these festivities. Here, the nice Kirtan Katha, we have a Shravan festival starting tomorrow, where there will be 5 powerful speakers who will be speaking on the pastime of Lord Jagannath. So tomorrow, His Grace Madhavananda Prabhu at 9 a.m. our time is going to speak on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastime in Jagannath Puri during Madhya Leela. And what a way to start. And Madhavananda Prabhu will be speaking straight from Odisha, Puri. He's been living there in Odisha for the last 30 years. He is the director of Gopalji Publications, which comes up with the Krishna Kathamrita Bindu. So don't miss that. It's at 9 o'clock in the Zoom. I shared the flyer in our group. And there'll be very, very related Jagannath Puri pastimes in the mode of a katha as the Shravan Festival, Lord Jagannath Shravan Festival, starting tomorrow, every Sunday at 9 o'clock. So and it's organized by all the ISKCON temples. It's organized primarily by our temple, ISKCON Plainfield, but all the temples are part of it. So be part of the hearing process. The Navadha Bhakti, the 9th process, it starts with Shravanam. So take the benefit of that. And hope to see everyone on the 24th. Share with your friends that you want to come for the Snan Yatra festival. There will be prasadam for everyone. So it will be ecstatic event. So please come. So if there is any other final question before we end. So I'd like to end here by paying obeisances, respectful obeisances on the lotus feet of all Vaishnavas. Vancha kalpa
Tarubhyasya kripa sindhubhyo eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo
Namo
namo
Namaha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Krishna.